Yeah. Just let one, two, three more participants. So, again, very much welcome to this short webinar from our project MERSE, Business Models Empowering Rural Entrepreneurship, in, and with the underlying voicing the rural norm in part of the Interreg program in the northern sparsely populated areas in Europe. And let me see here. And the objective of MERSE is to make it easy to start up and develop social enterprises, especially in rural areas. And this is the great gang behind the project. It's 18 partners, and the lead partner is the Mid Sweden University. And then we have partners and additional associated partners, 8 municipalities, and also a leader group. And what are we doing? What are we expecting? We are doing this cross-border learning and activities to create our partnership. And we will create an online training platform. We will, and we have now an impact measurement tool, and we are running a leadership training program, and we support social enterprises. And we're working very much with peer-to-peer leadership training, and also in cooperation with the Social Enterprise Academy in Scotland. And today we'll start up with Sara Valentin, a colleague to me here and to us in Coompanion, and then we will continue. So with the Effie, Imon, Anne, and Claire. And maybe Imon is Michael will maybe speak for him instead. We'll see. But we start up with Sara, and I will try to finish my sharing and let Sara take the floor. It's looking fine,
It's also
Sara.
better with the sound on. So, hi everybody. Thank you so much for having this opportunity to talk about NOI. My name is Sara Valentin. I'm a colleague to Pelle here at Coompanion in Östersund. I work in a 3-year-long project called NOI, Node for Inclusion. And NOI also, I don't know if we have any Italian-speaking friends with us, but it's we in Italian, hopefully. And NOI also is little in Thai language. So it means that if we all do a little bit, we can make a big change. And the main focus is to work with enterprises. It's not a project focusing on individuals. It's that is many others are doing that. So we are like a complement focusing on the role of employers, especially. We are funded by the European Social Fund and also the regional of Jämtland Härjedalen and the 2 municipalities of Östersund and Krokom. And we're also very happy that we have the Swedish Public Employment Service with us, because they normally don't enter small or regional projects in Sweden. So we are especially glad that they are a part of it, and they are important actor to have in the program to get the success. And it's also a lot of cooperation, and we work with the labor market and not having them we can't make a success. So that's why we're happy to have them in the program. The challenge that we are focusing on is the gap in the labor market. We have a lot of small enterprises in our region, but we also have people that hasn't found their job, their place in the society. And this is a cost for the people, for the society, and in different barrier levels. But the companies also lack specific skills or specific competences. And we think that we can put these two challenges together, and then it will be better for the region, for the persons, and for the companies. So we try to make this with the change skill or mindset. We are quite fast to put labels or identities on people that is outside the labor market. We call them lazy. Maybe they are old, or they are immigrants, or they are low educated. We put labels on them that people didn't choose their own. So we focus to how can we change the people that are within the sector, that has a job, that have jobs, that are within the labor market, so to speak. So we try to make this bubble bigger, that we all are people, and we see people's competencies and skills as the thing they are, and how their driving forces can make difference in the society. And so we focus on the employers, change their mindsets, their attitudes, their behavior to make this bubble bigger. And the social enterprises is a big opportunity to use in this, because people can go, they are experts on supporting, working with people that comes from unemployment or other parts and want to enter in the labor market. So they are experts on how can we support and strengthen them, and to mainly visibilize them in the society. So we do this by 4 kind of main activities. We support companies or employers that want to recruit, by to broaden their recruitment process, and also to rebuild how they think of when they should recruit a person. Like, can you think about this? Can we write it in another? What is a must? What is actually a must? To be a bit, unpopular, you can say, almost, to work with them. But we also create a lot of networks, try to remind us of who is not in the group, who is not invited in this network, or so to speak. And we also use a neutral location for people. We also have workshops for job seekers, a neutral location that is not within the municipality, or it's not with the public employment service where you get your money also. So the power, try to equalize the power a bit. And we also use procurement a lot. We think that is a good tool to use to create these meetings. Also, if it's voluntarily or if it's a must. So the different contract conditions you can use. And we support both sides. We support also the municipality. How can they write? How can they use this tool? Do we need a bit more knowledge or competence about this system? How can we use it? But we also support the social enterprises or other enterprises, how they can answer to the procurement. So we need to support both sides. And we checked it, that is legally. So it's not like some kind of, how do you say, jab or corruption or something like that. But it's okay regarding the law. So we can bow on both sides, because we are not gaining anything from it. But also network. But we also do a lot of training, like challenges the norms, the attitudes and behaviors. Especially we have a leadership for managers, also a training for mentors or supervisors, the day-to-day, and also consulting about this. And we also try to invite the social enterprises in all the networks that we are, and try to get, how do you say, normal companies to act more socially, to get some kind of impact. We want to create more businesses together. I think that is a great way of doing it. And it's coming more and more tools or legal reforms like CSRD, ESRS, and DS. It's big sustainability impact systems reports. And most of our companies here in the municipalities are smaller. So it's not a must for them. So we think that if we create the networks that people can do business, we have, like, for example, a Swedish known furniture company that has actually, we help them. How can they use the social enterprises to make local businesses? For example, there was in one social enterprise who employs a lot of women that has never been working in Sweden before, and she trains them to sew. And then she also works a lot with responsibilities and opportunities that you have in Sweden. What can you do? So she also talk a lot with the whole family, so that maybe the husband is okay that the woman is transferring to another company working with men and women. So it's a whole of changing attitudes, behaviors around it. And also increase the relationship between the Swedish Public Employment Service, so the social enterprises can sell more of their services to them about rehabilitation or training. And also help other companies that wants to take some social responsibility to deconstruct and rebuild maybe their the way they recruit. So that is basically what we do to make it work. We are the one running in between everybody to make new operations, to make the invisible visible, because that reduces risk. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sara. And I'm not letting people asking questions right now because we're going to Effie, and then maybe after we can have a question raised for the presentation from Sara and Effie. So Effie, the floor or
the screen, maybe.
The screen is yours. Yeah.
Thank you, Pelle, and thank you, Sara. Very interesting to listen to you. And thank you, everyone, for letting me be here today. Together, I should say, with at least one of my colleagues, Jon Söder, who is also present. So my name is Effie Kurlos. I am, well, I think the easiest title in English should be Vice Mayor of the municipality here in Östersund. I'm not going to show you a presentation, but I hope that you still will be able to listen. So to begin with, I should say a few words about Östersund. I don't know if any of you not being in Sweden at the moment have been here. But Östersund is a municipality in the, well, we often say in the northern part of Sweden, but we're actually situated in the middle of Sweden. The municipality has 65,000 inhabitants, and we are the only city in the county of Jämtland where we have altogether 130,000 inhabitants. And geographically, the county is slightly larger than Slovakia, just to get an idea. Östersund is currently in a phase where a lot of things are happening. We have a goal of growing as a municipality, and this is because, as in many European countries at the moment, we have a population that is getting older, and we need more people to come here to work, and hopefully also to bring more kids, new children to the world. I think you have the similar situation in your countries. And to be able to achieve that goal, to be a larger population in the future, we work a lot with welcoming companies here, investments, both within the green transition, such as electric intensive industry, but we also have a lot of public authorities in Östersund, and many of them are growing at the moment. But as Sara said, most of our enterprises in Jämtland are rather small. So that's the situation today. And for us as a municipality, the cooperation between social enterprises and our traditional businesses and public organizations is very important, and an important part of strengthening the labor market, but also to include more people, of course. And I think you mentioned it, Sara, but I will say it again. We have a very low unemployment here in Jämtland, which really means that we have to work in all ways we can to include everyone to be part of the labor market, both, of course, from a competence supply perspective, but of course also from the individual perspective that Sara described. So that's important for us. And we work with this in different ways, of course. Maybe I should say, I guess you know that also, but we are, as a county and as a municipality, situated, we are lucky enough to be situated in a very beautiful part of Sweden with a lot of mountains, beautiful nature, and as Pelle said, a lot of snow now in the winter, which also means that we have a large range of sectors within the market, the employment market. So, for example, we have a lot of tourism here. We also have businesses within different sectors, but we also are very good at sports events. We have biathlon competitions here this weekend, and a lot of things happening here in our part of Sweden. So when it comes to our work as a municipality with social enterprises, we have a history of working within this field. And as Jon reminded me, as early as in 2016, we had a policy document for the municipality's way of working with social enterprises. And at the moment, we have a business strategy where we also state very clearly that collaboration with social enterprises should lead to increased skills provision and reduce social exclusion. And I think considering the development in general in Sweden and the rest of the world, this is more important than ever in so many ways for us as a municipality. And at the moment, the municipality is working with a new business strategy. And here also, of course, social enterprises will be an important part of our document. So I will give you a few examples of what we actually do and what tools we as a municipality have to work within this field. And one thing we do is we work with what we call IOPs. So that's idea-based public partnerships, where we write an agreement with organizations, for example. So it's civil society public partnerships. And this we can apply in different fields. For example, we have one partner called Hej Främling in Swedish, which basically means hello stranger in English. This is a partnership where we have created a sort of living room for young asylum seekers. And this, I should say, was a few years ago when this started, because at the moment we have too few asylum seekers, unfortunately, coming to our part of Sweden and in general to Sweden, I should say. But this was very successful. It was a way of including people who had recently come here. And it started with a very small group, and currently we have around 400 visits per week. And this is a place where people can hang out together, do activities, but also to network, of course, in order to in the next step be included in the labor market in different ways. So it has been a very successful partnership. And what we appreciate with these idea-based public partnerships is that they are based on more trust than control. So it really gives us the opportunity to to work together towards a common goal. It also gives us flexibility, and we can learn on the way. So that's very successful. And we have other examples as well. Another very important IOP at the moment is one that we have with Save the Children in an area in Östersund called Torvalla, which is a socio-economic vulnerable area where we have identified together that we have to do more to offer activities to children, to support them, to make their free time meaningful in different ways. We also have school break activities, a breakfast club, and some special activities pointed towards girls. And this has also been very successful, and is a good example, I think, of the value of these partnerships, because Save the Children can do things that we as a municipality can't do, but together, with our muscles together, we can achieve great and important results. So that's a very good example as well. And another tool that we have is what we call reserved contracts. So these are basically contracts that only social enterprises can participate in gaining with the municipality. And one example that I can mention is that when the municipality prepares apartments for people coming here, asylum seekers, for example, this used to be something that the municipality did themselves, so furnishing and preparing these apartments. But by doing one of these reserved contracts with second-hand shops and different social enterprises, we were able to create opportunities for people to do this instead. So to create work, in other words, and make people included in the labor market as a first step. And this can also be done, of course, in other areas, more simple work tasks such as cleaning or other things that the municipality normally does, but where we see a great value of including people, even though perhaps you do not have yet the Swedish skills of the language. You can do this together with a supervisor and both get the language skills, being in the labor market, and it's a great opportunity. I apologize for my dog here. I'm working from home today, I should say, because my daughter is sick. The life puzzle, the family life. So that's the reality. So we see a great winning for the municipality, because one of our largest obstacles, I should say, in growing is that we have this very low unemployment. On one hand, it's very good, of course, because we want everyone to be out on the labor market, but it is difficult for companies growing, for new companies coming here to find people. And it's, I cannot even express how important it is for us to find ways for everyone to come into the labor market in that way. And as I'm sure you are aware of, we also have a large discussion ongoing in Sweden about exclusion, about parallel societies. Luckily, we do not have a lot of that in the county of Jämtland, but it's something that we have to work on all the time. So we see a lot of very important values in doing this. Just to finish, I should say that right now, after lunch today, I'm going to the municipality to have a discussion with a lot of our employees about the budget for next year, where this will continue to be an important part of what we do. So we are very happy to be part of this project and of everything done. And we see that we have a challenge in front of us. to do things even better, to upscale this work. And I think it's really important to have these kind of forums where we can learn from each other and get good examples. So these are a few things that we do in Östersund, and I should give the opportunity to Jon, who is actually more operative than I am, if you want to add something. But thank you for listening, and I will stick for a little longer to listen to you, and then unfortunately I have to go to this budget meeting, but that's equally important, I think, so that we can keep this work up. So thank you very much for inviting us and for all good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Effie. And as she said, Jon, or would Jon like to say something, or are there questions to be raised, or something that you like to say? It's open.
No, I think you got it, Effie. It's good work.
Crystal clear. Okay, Michael.
Morning, Pelle. Morning, everybody. Unfortunately, Eamon can't be with us this morning, therefore I'm stepping in his place. I'll do my best to answer questions at the end if I can. But I'm just going to try share my screen with you. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I represent Údaras na Gaeltachta, and Údaras na Gaeltachta is responsible for the economic, social, and cultural development of Gaeltacht, that is Irish-speaking regions. So as some of you might know, Irish is the original language of this country, and it was reduced to a few communities on the west coast, and one other on the south coast, and one other in the Midlands. And Údaras na Gaeltachta was established to preserve that economic, but crucially the social and cultural element of the Gaeltacht. We're also responsible for job creation and enterprise development, but there's a strong emphasis on preserving and promoting the Irish language, along with a strong emphasis on social enterprise. Our remit is in relation to the social and cultural development of the Gaeltacht area. So there you can see a theatre that's in Inbrin, and it's widely used in the community, not just for theatrical events, but for all kinds of events. Also, the Údaras supports a range of initiatives, for example, community development groups, social enterprise projects, youth preschool initiatives, Irish language planning, arts and cultural activities. So the language planning is a more recent initiative, and it's an effort to promote the language within the Gaeltacht regions, and also to those that come to the Gaeltacht regions know that this is the #1 language in these regions, and that they would understand the cultural heritage behind that. So within the Community Development Unit, we work with community development organisations, of which we have 35 of them. They would be in the form of community development companies or cooperatives. There are 17 in the west, 7 in the southern region, 11 in Donegal, which is in the northwest of the country. Their operational funding comes from us, that is Údaras na Gaeltachta. And all the groups have 5-year development plans that they are developing on an ongoing basis with an agreed annual development plan, i.e. they agree that with us. Development organisations involved in community development, local service provision, social enterprises, community resource centres, etc. So they provide not just an opportunity for, let's say, somebody who was looking to establish their own business, where they would could receive office space or other supports. There's also childcare, which is taken on by a lot of these local development companies, and they're there to those local development companies are there to assist in the implementation of the Údaras development strategy. So that would be enterprise development, the GTEX, which is the kind of like workspace made available to people, and then obviously tourism projects, because tourism is a big industry in the Gaeltachta regions. So our social enterprise strategy and supports Údaras social enterprise strategy published in 2022. We have mentoring supports, business plans, concept development support scheme, capital funding supports for social enterprises, and a graduate scheme to assist groups with social enterprise projects, which is a new program that will be launching in the new year. So here's just a few examples of social enterprise that we have in the Gaeltacht. In the top left, there is the Kill Alta Biodiversity or Circular Economy project. So they grow vegetables there and they provide food to local restaurants. Meals on Wheels, which is an initiative to feed people that may not be able to get to the shop so easily or may not be able to feed themselves so easily. And so this project provides funding or provides food for that Meals on Wheels project, amongst many other things. On your right, you see the jellyfish. That's the Achill Island Aquarium. Again, this is a social enterprise run by the cooperative in Achill Island, and it is relying entirely upon the amount of visitors that Achill Island would receive in the summertime, of which there would be a lot. And then just below that, another important project is the recycling project on the Aran Islands. The Aran Islands are visited by nearly 500,000 people a year, so you can imagine the amount of waste that generates. And so this this cooperative was established in the early noughties to deal with waste disposal on the islands, and it has been a massive success. It has won multiple awards, and it is a shining light in the social enterprise landscape, not just in the Gaeltacht, but across the country. Finally, looking forward, we'll further develop the community development and the social enterprise sector, raise awareness about the potential for the social enterprise sector, act as a support resource for social enterprise projects in the Gaeltacht, work in the collaboration with relevant actors in the sector. And one of those relevant actors will be speaking later on. Further develop the Údaras social enterprise website and continue with Gradam na Gaeltacht. That is an award that we have for our social enterprise is actually happening tonight. And as a result of how busy our social entrepreneurs are, more of them would be on this call with us this morning, but for some of them would traveling to this event tonight. And lastly, we participate in relevant EU programs to enhance the sector, programs like MERSE, and another one that has just finished, Empower Us, whose output I will be sharing with the MERSE project in the coming weeks. That's everything. If you have any questions, Pelle, I can wait. I can take them now or at the end.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
See, you are sharing screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Jamie,
anyone
I see
would
Jamie
like?
has her hand up.
Yes, hi Michael. Thank you for your presentation. I'm interested to know more about how the recycling center, like what qualities and what aspects of it has like really driven it to be a shining example in social enterprise.
So I suppose the most important one would be community engagement, Jamie, because like it's not as simple as, well, I don't know how it works in Iceland, but like on the mainland here, we have our brown bin, our blue bin, and our grey bin, and that's it. You just put your rubbish into those three bins. There's a little bit more compartmentalization to be done with the rubbish on the island. So the first thing they did was they engaged with the islanders, and the islanders understood, because they had been putting their own rubbish into a landfill on the island for years before that. and they understood the importance of this project. So it was easy for them to get the community on board, but community engagement was the single biggest factor as to the success of that social enterprise in the past 20 years.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then I think we're moving on to Anne Graham, Social Enterprise and Innovation Manager, WDC.
Yes, I'm ready to share my screen. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is Anne Graham, and I work as a Social Enterprise and Social Innovation Manager with the Western Development Commission. And I'll just give you some background about our organisation. So my presentation this morning is going to include some background on the Western Development Commission and its various divisions and the key focus areas that we're working on at the moment. I'm going to discuss why social enterprise matters to us in this region. I'm going to share some national and regional data on social enterprises, and I apologise, maybe you've seen some of this data already as you progress through this project. I'll also discuss social finance, and that's something, it's like an intervention that we provide through the Western Investment Fund. And I'll cover off some practical examples of good practice in terms of social enterprise, and then finish up by covering the ecosystem supports that I've observed that I feel are quite valuable. And it's a sort of an advice piece I would give to other regions. So just some background on the Western Development Commission. You'll see there at the bottom right hand of the screen, it's a kind of a teal coloured map. That's the actual geography that the Western Development Commission covers. So I think some of the participants here have already been in Ireland, so they'll probably be familiar with some of the areas. So it's all of the West Coast and the Northwest. That's the region we cover and the remit that we sit under. So the Western Development Commission, for anyone that doesn't know, is a statutory body established in 1997 to promote social and economic development in the West. And the reason it was established was back in 1997, the end of the 90s, the region was deemed a lagging region. There has been a lot of improvement in the region since that, but by all accounts, it's still deemed a lagging region in European terms, which I suppose is a bit disappointing. But I suppose when you compare yourself to other regions, that's what the stats prove. We have a statutory obligation to advise government. So I'll go through some of the divisions that sit within WDC in a minute. So our role is really I should say one part of our role is to advise government. So in Ireland, obviously, a lot of the policies devised in a central way. It's not like some of the other organisations on here who have their local municipalities and they've some control over policy. So our role here is to try and advise government of what it is like in a rural region, what the challenges are in peripheral regions, and to make sure that the policy takes account of that. We also manage the Western Development Fund, and in 2025 we developed a new strategy. It's a 5-year strategy, and within that we created a sort of a new pillar or emphasized social enterprise and social innovation development much more than in previous strategies. So our overall ambition is to do a little bit more in social development. So this is just a quick overview. I'm not going to go through all the various divisions, but one of, I suppose, the 4 pillars of this organization, number one is we're here to invest in the region. So there's a big fund. It was started off by 23 million seed funding by government, and that fund has grown. It's an evergreen fund, and it has grown to 100 million. So there's a portion of that fund that's carved off and is available for social finance. The remainder of the fund is for equity investment. One of our purposes is to promote the region, promote it as a great place to work and live. It's a beautiful region. I'm sure if some of you have been here, you'll understand that. Developing the region is one of our objectives as well. And within that, we have project teams that work on EU projects. We also have the Connected Hubs network, which you might have come across. It's a national network for hubs throughout the country. It was developed in the middle of COVID and has been very successful since. We do a lot of collaboration work. And then lastly, the social enterprise and social innovation is my remit. And then I covered off one of our policy division, one of our divisions is a policy department, and it's used to influence and create policy that can speak to this region and take account of our challenges. So that's the Western Development Commission. So why does social enterprise matter in the rural areas? Well, no more than yourselves and a lot of the speakers there this morning, and I suppose the people who've been on this project to date will understand, it helps us address the local challenge. Some of the challenges we've experienced is population decline, fewer services, outward migration, and I'm sure a lot of you can identify and you're familiar with those challenges as well. It gives us an opportunity to build on community strengths. It provides jobs in rural areas, and it helps solve societal or environmental issues. Some of them Michael just mentioned there in terms of the likes of recycling centres. And it matters as well because of community buy-in, and with that you'll get ownership. So a lot of the time we would observe that when you have that ownership, that a lot of the projects actually get delivered because the people who live locally do care about its success or otherwise. So just in terms of national stats and data, and I do apologise if you've seen some of these stats before, but it is important. The social enterprise world here in Ireland delivers 2.34 billion to the overall economy. In the last census, there were over 4,000 social enterprises nationally, 84,500 roughly employed, and nearly as much in a volunteer capacity. You may say almost 75,000. That's one of the biggest challenges I would see for the sector, is in terms of that sustainability for the volunteers. Will it last for the next while? It's hard to see how it will, because there's a lot of burnout with the volunteers. And then 69% of the workforce within the social enterprise world here is represented by women. So that's just some of the stats. Just in terms of the breakdown of the types of social enterprises that are in this region, obviously there's an urban pillar there on the right-hand side of the screen, and then there's the rural. So childcare is one of the biggest social enterprise providers and suppliers of service in this region. And then next up is the community infrastructure and local development. And that's usually a multifaceted type community organisation, which also may act as a social enterprise at the same time with its own trading income. I'm not going to go into the rest of them, but you can see there are some differences between urban and rural, which is interesting. Just on that baseline, census is being done again next year, so it'll be very good to compare the very first one, which you see on the screen, compared with figures in 2026. But then just some stats then on the social enterprises within the region that Western Development Commission covers. Some counties, my own county there, I live and work at the very north of the country in Donegal, and we would have one of the biggest number of social enterprises. It's quite a rural region, so that's probably no surprise. A lot of communities and organisations just creating their own solutions to local problems. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that compares in the next census as well. So I'm just going to speak now about the social finance aspect of what Western Development Commission offers. So on the journey, I suppose, of the Western Investment Fund, I think it was roughly about 20 years ago, it was decided to create and carve off some of the funds within that successful Evergreen Fund to give something back to the not-for-profit part of society. So a community loan was created. It's also sometimes termed as social finance. They're both exactly the same thing. So what we provide in Western Development Commission is two types of loans, very, very simple products. One is a term loan and the other is a bridging loan. You'll be familiar with the leader type grant. So we provide bridging for that. Often a big challenge with the leader grant is that it's retrospective in nature. So you must spend your own funds up front. And that's not easy if you don't have your own funds. So what we do there is provide a bridging loan up front. And this allows the community organisations and the social enterprises to draw down the leader grant. And then what happens is the leader organisations, usually local development companies, pay us back the bridging at the end of the project on completion of the successful objectives of the policy. So I suppose our finance, it's very unlike banking or your mainstream types of finance. It's very flexible. I come from a banking background many moons ago, and the way we look at these assessments is much more flexible, much less rigid. We will look at the social impact of what the organisation is trying to do. Sometimes financially, it may not fully stack up, but the social impact is so strong that we will consider it. So we look at it with a very different type of hat, and it's quite risky sometimes in terms of what we're actually doing. But interestingly, we have a very low bad debt ratio, which is very different to mainstream banking. And I think that's because of the people who are involved in borrowing the funds on behalf of the organisations. They're very invested, they care, and they ensure that the facilities are repaid. I should say there's no or relatively low risk with the bridging because ultimately the loan will be repaid in full via the local development company on completion of the project. Term loan is slightly different. Just in terms of, I suppose, some of the attraction points or what appeals to the organisations that we work with, there's no fees involved. And very importantly, there's no personal guarantees sought. That wasn't always the case in terms, now when I say always the case, Western Development Commission never sought personal guarantees, but in this space in lending, and I go back to my banking days, if you were lending to the likes of the not-for-profit sector, personal guarantees would have been sought. And that was a very off-putting criteria in terms of borrowing. So very important here that there's no one person, one individual that's on the hook for any of the borrowing. Interestingly, a lot of our loans are largely unsecured, and we will give loans from multiple purposes. I suppose it's easier to say what we don't cover. We will not give loans for feasibility grants, nor do we refinance any other organisation's debt. But it is a very popular product. A lot of people are very, I suppose, pleased sometimes when they look at the criteria and they see it's not onerous. It's just a matter of getting your paperwork in place. In terms of loan amounts, we will give anything between 50 and up to 200,000. That's the cap. But yeah, it's quite popular. So just in terms of borrower examples, it's a bit like that slide that gave the breakdown of the different types of social enterprises that are here. So childcare, multifaceted social enterprises. Sometimes we do community infrastructure. A lot of our organisations work in the tourism space. Some of them are in the community remote working hubs. So a lot of them are kind of capital projects. We've also covered off circular economy projects and heritage, and that's just a flavour of some. But just to say, it's really anything that sits in the not-for-profit or the third sector. That's one of the first questions we'll often ask is, are you not-for-profit? And if you are, then you can avail of this particular loan. If you're in the mainstream enterprise, you'll speak to my counterparts and my colleagues in the equity business end of the fund. They will look after that. Just some practical examples, I suppose, of good practice that we have observed in terms of successful social enterprises. So a lot of community organisations keeping local shops alive. That would be the succession planning. We would see that in areas where there's depopulation. Men's sheds providing social connection and mental health support for obviously our men. Community energy projects, social farming initiatives, community transport schemes, and then just your general multifaceted social and community organisations where they can provide a very large mix of, it could be the local library combined with the local post office, combined with sports, combined with childcare. So it's very much a community anchor organisation. And those would be the types of organisations we've supported to date. Selfishly, I'm going to give you some examples here, and I appreciate some of you may have come across these in your journey through this MERSE project, but when I say selfishly, they're all based in Donegal. I just thought I'd concentrate on the ones that are within my county. Spree Agus Sport, very successful social enterprise here in Donegal. It started out as a mother and toddler group with, I think, 5 or 6 members, and today it employs 100 people. It's a very multifaceted anchor organisation, a great example of what can be done. The one there in the middle, and Creven Termon Community Centre, again, a very successful social enterprise based in a very rural area, but very much the centre of the community. It sits across the road from the local school. It has a community sports hall. It has a community connected hub. I'm probably going to forget some of the things. They actually have a local hairdressing. They provide lots of recreational and well-being type facilities. They also have partnered up with a local heritage organisation where they provide bikes for hire. So that was a pivot move that they made back a few years ago, and that has aided in their financial sustainability. With very, very successful organisation. Then on the right-hand side, there's an organisation called Liquid Therapy. This is an organisation that provides well-being and, I suppose, development for individuals with additional needs. Very, very successful. What they do is they provide therapy, but a lot of it involves sports on the water. So it's a very interesting concept and hugely successful. They're recognised nationally for being one of the best at what they do in terms of therapy. So they kind of provide fun and therapy together. Bottom left is a gym, a local gym based in Letterkenny. It's called the No Barriers Foundation. It's a specialist gym that concentrates on assisting people with rehabilitation needs. It is a mainstream gym. It's your regular gym. You can go in there if you don't have any, I suppose, challenges, but if you are someone that's rehabilitating, very, very important. What they do is they integrate people with ordinary and everyday people from society, so that they're not isolated. So it's a very, very interesting concept and very integrated, very, very successful, and again, an award-winning social enterprise. And then the bottom right-hand corner is Arnmore Island Cooperative, and Michael, I think, had them on one of their slides. This is an island organisation, and they have done huge things. Again, a very successful anchor organisation. And one of the key themes that they have done quite a while ago is they built holiday accommodation on the island, and that's one of their key income streams. They do a lot more than that, multifaceted, really meeting the challenges of the island. But yeah, they've done it in a very smart business model way. So they've got their income coming in. So that's, I suppose, the summary of the examples I wanted to share. Moving on now, I just want to kind of share some of the ecosystem building supports that I have observed in my time, and that I would say in terms of good practice are something that should be observed. And again, I apologize if you've kind of come across some of these before, but these are just learnings that I would have, as I say, observed in my time working in this space. So I would say to anyone who's looking at ecosystem building, especially if they're at the outset, is define their ecosystem supports through mapping and identifying the gaps first, and continue to map as you go, continuously assessing. So I'd say map first, see what you've got, and then work step by step in partnership with other organizations to try and close out those gaps. Some of, I suppose, the challenges that we have here in Ireland, there's some organizations slightly overlapping and duplicating. There's pros and cons to that, and I won't get into that, but I would say that's one of the first pieces of advice I would give to any region that's trying to really build out the supports within their ecosystem. And I think you have to be really intentional about that, especially in rural areas. It's vital, because obviously resources are thin on the ground, as is money, as is people, as is volunteering. And it's really trying to do it in a clever and efficient way. I'd say build your local networks and create opportunity for peer learning. So here in Ireland, there's lots of sports networks, and that's one of the networks that I would say, you could leverage from if you have that type of network. And if not, then, I suppose, yeah, again, be clever about the types of networks that you're building, and you could do that through the mapping exercise as well. And when you're on that journey, I would say create opportunity for peer learning. So if there's networks out there that have done quite well, try and partner up with them, see how they did it, how did they get buy-in, how did they get support. I suppose here in Ireland, there's been a lot of grants and a lot of money provided by governments, and that is really, really needed in the sector. But with that, I would say it's very important that you put capacity building supports with that. In some ways, sometimes I think, we have kind of grant saturation. Some people might shoot me for saying that, but I think it's money alone is not the answer, I suppose, is my point. And if you can always think of the grants with the capacity building supports, you're much likely to lead to a much stronger ecosystem in terms of supports. In terms of policy, make sure what you're doing is policy led, and that's from top down and bottom up, and make sure it's all coherent. I think I've touched on this already. I would say where you can, always try and work in partnership and not in silos. And that could be with organizations or networks that don't really, I suppose, maybe initially make sense. I'd say, leverage the networks that are already there, because, the formation is already there within some networks, but at least speak to existing networks, but certainly try and partnership with other organizations, especially in rural areas. Raise awareness is another advice piece I would give. Share at every opportunity what you're doing. I think one of the challenges that we have here in Ireland is that not enough people really understand what social enterprises do. It's one of our national objectives in terms of raising understanding, raising awareness, and building that, because when people understand, they're obviously much more likely to support. The other piece I would say is, if you have successful models, think about scaling and replicating those where you can. Sometimes there's, the blueprint or the playbook is already there for organizations. They may not be in your area, but there's a possibility of copying what someone else does and maybe leveraging all of that knowledge, leveraging all of the, the pitfalls that they've fallen into. And people are generally speaking quite happy to share. So I would always say, keep the ecosystem mindset at the fore of what you're doing as well. And I've touched on this already, and recognize you can't achieve everything alone, especially where there's gaps, and be explicit about other actors that are needed. And sometimes that happens, organically, and sometimes you've just got to go out there and ask for help. And then obviously you're already talking about recording your social impact. So you've got your social impact measurement tool, and I'd be really interested in hearing more about that. It's something we're looking at in this region. It's really important when you're going, especially like our policy division, when they're trying to talk to government or do a policy submission paper to government and say, look, we need this. But if you've no way of measuring or showcasing how your activities have impacted locally, regionally, then it's very difficult for the other person to understand. So I can see and hear this morning that you're already doing that, which is really, really great. So I might learn something from you. Practical tips for MERSE partners in rural areas. And I've covered some of this and probably replicating now, but tailor your supports to what's needed locally. I think you already know that. Social finance is an enabler, but it's only part of the jigsaw. I think capacity building support's really important. And I would say seek to build all parts of your ecosystem bit by bit and in partnership and collaboration. And from networks, pick one or two initiatives within each region and commit to that, I suppose, in maybe a pathway or a strategic way is what I would say. So that's me. I just want to say thank you for allowing me to join your webinar this morning. It's been a pleasure listening to the speakers so far. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to address those. I think someone has their hand up there.
Ida, I heard saw earlier. Is it?
No, I got the answer of my question.
Oh, have
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Feel free to ask. Very impressive. I had one little question, since I'm also part-time involved in the microfinancing for the social economy in Sweden. And you said you had low losses on your engagements. And just curious, how low in percentage?
In percentage-wise, I think it's around 3% of the overall portfolio of the community loans piece.
3%?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I suppose the only thing I can compare that with is I would have worked in the credit union sector here in Ireland, and that's a cooperative finance model. Now I'm going back to a time when it was post the crash here in Ireland, and I remember I suppose, percentage of the deteriorating loan book. Now, this is slightly different because it's a combination of community and individual borrowing. But at that point, it's just something to compare with. It would have been around the 12 or 13% of the total borrowing book, and that was back in 2015. Now, that's 10 years ago. It was post-crash. But I suppose as the economy dug itself out of, I suppose, the hole that it was in at that point and turned the ship around, that figure came down to around the 4 or 5% then. And that was, there's a number of factors that would have played a part in that. It would have been, was the intention of seeking recovery of staff, actively working with people and individuals. The economy itself was naturally returning to a better place, so people were in work and therefore able to rectify the losses, their personal losses. So yeah, so there was a number of factors that would have played a part in that. But yeah, the deteriorating loan percentage is quite low. And I really do think it's because, firstly, you're working with organizations who are motivated from a very good place in terms of being involved with an organization. It's not something they have to do, it's something they want to do. And they really care about their locality and they care about making sure it's a success. So I think that's probably, part of it. I suppose during COVID, we would have given a sort of a blanket reprieve for all of the organizations. We wrote to them all and said, look, if you need a break, we can facilitate that. And I think depending on the organization, and their income streams, some availed of it, some didn't. But that was just a blanket decision made because, obviously we were where we were and it was the right thing to do at that point.
Okay, thank you very much, Anne. And now we're moving on to our last speaker, Claire Allen. Very welcome.
Thank you. Sorry, I think, did Jamie have a question there?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Anne. Earlier you mentioned that there may be some successful blueprints that community can take examples from. Do you have some resources or recommendations on where these blueprints may be accessible?
Okay, so when I mentioned that, I suppose there isn't an actual document that I'm referring to, if that's what you're thinking, Jamie. Not at the moment. But what I would say is Claire Allen from Rethink is going to talk about something in a few minutes, and it's really the development of the National Social Innovation Hub here in Ireland. But that is something in due course that we may do as part of the hub. It's really looking at successful social enterprise models, looking at the factors of success, maybe looking at the pitfalls as well, and developing blueprints from that. Now, that is a bit a way off. It could be within a year or two time before that is done. But what I would say is, sorry, beg your pardon. What I would say is if there's any specific type of social enterprise that you're interested in talking to, for example, if it's Brí agus Sport, let's say some of the ones on my slide, or it's something in maybe say the circular economy, I can certainly put you in touch with those people. And a lot of that early conversation might help guide you initially, if that's of any help. So if you have some ideas, I'm sure the organizers here will share all our contact details after. So Jamie, if you want to pick up on that, if there's something specifically that you're thinking of, please reach out. There could be someone in our region that I could introduce you to. And what I find is most of these founders and CEOs are quite happy to share once they have sufficient time in advance and notice and things like that. So hopefully that might be helpful.
Yeah, thank you. I was also thinking of maybe presenting these resources to the mayor, where he could maybe run a community engagement session and look through some successful examples, case studies, to address back into what our community is facing at the moment. But thank you. Thank you for offering connections.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a good initiative.
Fine. Thank you. Claire Allen.
Thank you very much. And thanks everybody for staying on as well. So just bear with me and I will just share my screen. Okay, so are you able to see this now?
Yeah, can see it, Claire.
Okay, super. Yeah, so folks, sorry, my computer sometimes when I'm on a call it goes a bit funny, but yeah, thank you for having me here. So my name is Claire Allen. I am the head of social enterprise here with Rethink Ireland. And I suppose what I'll just take you through today, just kind of quickly, is just kind of a snapshot of the type of work that Rethink Ireland does. So firstly, it's to say that we are a funding organisation. So we're a social innovation fund and we work off of a venture philanthropy model, which ultimately means that we're investing in impact. I suppose since 2016, we have raised over 109 million. And so that has been a combination of philanthropy and government funding as well. But with that, we have backed, well, it's over 448 social innovations. And I suppose through those then that we have reached over 1 million people. So I suppose, you know, since 2016, the journey has been quick. We've definitely scaled quite fast, I would say. And obviously that has its own challenges as well. But I think what we have had the opportunity to do is to, you know, reach quite a vast number of social enterprises and social innovations all across Ireland. You know, Anne and maybe some other speakers touched on this earlier, is around the importance of actually having those kind of non-financial supports. Like, yes, the cash grants are hugely important. So that's what Rethink Ireland does, is we give the cash grants. But what we also do is we give the strategic supports for the organization itself. So we generally, what we do is kind of have a look at the organization. We run our diagnostics essentially to see, okay, where are the gaps? What are the needs? And then with that, we would deploy the support. So we would either, you know, work ourselves with the organizations, or we might work with other consultants, or indeed we might, you know, there might be peer support. So other organizations that are doing something else or something similar, that we would put them in contact with each other. Just to say, in terms of the kind of strategic support, they're typically in the areas of impact management, as Anne mentioned earlier. Like, that's hugely important to be able to demonstrate the impact that you're achieving. We would do that in kind of strategic planning, in financial resilience, communications, and maybe some other kind of more specific supports, I suppose. So yeah, that's kind of broadly, I suppose, how we operate. We do also have what we call an accelerator program. And effectively what this is it's workshops that are going to be, you know, focused on a particular area. So again, be it impact management or financial resilience, that will be targeted at organizations at various different stages of their life cycle. So obviously, you know, an impact management workshop that is relevant for an early stage organization is going to be slightly different to an impact management workshop for a later stage organization. So I suppose, obviously, just with the audience that we have here today, just to mention, as I said, with Rethink Ireland, we do support social innovation. So that is charities, but we do also support the social enterprise space as well. But I suppose, as probably all of the speakers have spoken to earlier, you know, the importance of investing in social enterprises and, you know, for that kind of rural development piece. So more social enterprises starting, scaling, and becoming more sustainable in Ireland. You know, the more consumers that we have that are purchasing from those social enterprises. And also it is people accessing services from social enterprise. And I think, as we kind of all mentioned, is that the more social enterprises employ people who are considered to be far from the labour market. So yeah, we definitely support the social enterprise model. Just very quickly, I suppose there's obviously quite a number of examples that we'd have of social enterprises that we support, but I suppose with the New Wave Adventure Therapy Wild Project, so that's based down in Camp in County Kerry, so it's down south, but what they do, it's kind of similar. They support people to engage with therapy, but it's in those natural spaces. So it is in like the blue and the green spaces. But I suppose New Wave, they would have actually started out with us in the Social Enterprise Startup Fund in 2022. So there would have been an accelerator program attached to that. But actually now they're on our Impact Fund for Munster, which is, you know, from 2024 to 2025. And so what I suppose this is showing is that when they first came to Rethink Ireland, they were kind of at an earlier stage and they required, you know, a different type of support. But now they're following their journey through and they've come into the Impact Munster Fund, which, you know, they're at a later stage in their journey. So the types of supports that they're availing of are actually, you know, they're more relevant to where they're at now. So I suppose, and this is kind of something that we would see quite a lot actually, is that, you know, those early stage organizations that we invest in them kind of at that point, and then they'll come back to us at a later stage and apply for other funding that would be more relevant to them at that stage. So like we often fund organizations more than once, I suppose, is what I'm saying. But it's, you know, it's great to kind of see the journey that they go on. So as Anne was speaking about, or just mentioned earlier, is about this New Solutions Social Innovation Hub. So what this is an ESF plus funding, and now it is just for Ireland. Excuse me, and so it is for 3 years, and basically the total fund is 9.8 million, but there's 2.8 million which has been given to the hub. And so the hub has been made up of ourselves, Rethink Ireland, as the lead partner. We also have WDC, so Anne, we have Údaras na Gaeltachta, so we have Mihal. We also have the Local Development Companies Network, so they have, I think, about 49 different LDCs set up across the country. We have the Wheel, who are kind of a communications organization, and we also have DCU, who are a research organization. So all of us together are combining, and we have a consortium to make up the hub. And I suppose the purpose of the hub is to become like this virtual one-stop shop for social innovations across Ireland. But what I will say is, and just touching on what Anne mentioned, you know, this is the first of its kind. And what we're going to do is we're going to track all of the learnings from the very beginning right through to this 3 years. So that's why we have DCU, who are a university, as kind of a research partner. And so all of the learnings that we observe and we adapt to, those will be available on this virtual hub website. So then I suppose to mention, so that's kind of, I suppose, the hub itself, but then what we are doing is there's pilot grants and there are scaling grants. And so the hub will manage these grants and garner learnings. So it's really, we have this quite a unique opportunity, I would say, to access, I suppose, many different organizations across the whole, all of Ireland. And we're going to capture the learnings, feedback into, actively listen to the sector to see what is needed. And so we can provide recommendations, we can respond to those needs. and I suppose give back and unify the social enterprise sector. I suppose, what we can often see is that there's many organizations doing their own really great things, but what we really want to do is to unify all of those efforts through the hub. So sorry, just coming back to the slide, I suppose there's 4 key objectives of the hub. So one of those is the awareness raising. The other is just around that capacity building piece. So as we mentioned earlier, it's not just about money. This is about supporting the organizations such that they can sustain and scale. The third objective is around the pilot program. So we're tracking, it's not just the later stage organizations. We're starting right from the beginning to track the life cycle journey of these organizations. And then finally, it's to create the enabling environment. So kind of like that scaffolding piece. Just here, I've mentioned the consortium partners. And then I suppose within the hub itself, there's 5 key tasks, which obviously you'll be familiar with the tasks on European projects, but number 1 is to create the social innovation hub. Number 2 is develop a blended reporting framework. Number 3 is develop and deliver an ideas academy. Number 4 is around case management. So any of the grantees of the fund, just to manage those effectively. And then number 5 is design, develop, and implement a grant funding model for those pilots. So that's it from me, but happy to answer any questions. And just once again, thank you for having me here with you, and to all of the other speakers as well. It's been really insightful.
Free to ask question. I have just a little one. When you're talking about social innovation, how narrow are you when you're defining what constitutes a social innovation? When does it become social innovation and not?
Yeah, so I suppose there's kind of 2 things there. There's we look at the status of the organization, so whether they're a social enterprise or a charitable organization, and then it's I suppose you're then looking at the types of impact. So like there's a kind of an organizational piece, and then there is the impacts aspect of that as well. So just ensuring that, so it is all of that kind of non-for-profit space, I suppose.
More questions? Where were you located? Working all over the island, or is it part of the island, or?
Great question. So we have our kind of main offices in Dublin, but we have offices in Cork and Galway as well. So yeah, like I suppose what we would find is that now I myself work remotely, so many of our staff do. But yeah, like I suppose one thing, that we're kind of observing a little bit more of, just because of our model, is that lean towards the place-based giving. So as I mentioned there, there was the Impact Monster Fund, like that's focused on a particular area, and we're seeing more, and we're advocating for this as well, is more funding coming towards that place-based giving, because it really does build up the rural communities. And I suppose that's what we're actively trying to do, because probably to date we have seen more kind of the organizations coming from Dublin and from Cork, from the kind of more populated regions, but we do want to ensure that we're getting more of a spread across rural Ireland as well.
Yeah. More curious questions? Crystal clear. And I wonder, Anne and Claire, if you could share your PowerPoints with us,
Sure.
that will also be up on the mini web that Ida will provide. So, if so, in Sweden there is heading to lunch right now, and so if it's fine with you all, I will stop recording.